Hello, so in this video I'm going to show setting up to work with a new Strudel MCP server that I've written. If you've seen my videos before, you saw me working with a Strudel editor on a web page using LLMs from OpenRouter, and you can still work with Strudel that way if you'd like to, but this is going to be a little better setup because this new MCP server, which is hosted at a different URL than the old one, it has more features. It's basically a clone or a fork of the regular strudel.cc website. So it has more features, it has the samples, it has the references, and so this one is going to be a little bit better for working with Strudel through, in particular, working with Claude Code and the other CLI coding tools. So I'll paste the links in the description below so that you can follow along and get set up as well too. I'm just going to assume that you have Node installed and that you have Git installed as well too. But other than that, we'll take a look at everything to get you set up and started. And hopefully this will be a series of videos. I want to show some techniques for using Claude to write chord progressions and also melodies. And I'll leave some examples of that in the description below as well too. But at least for this video, I just want to walk through how I currently work with this Strudel MCP server. I have a GitHub repo that I put a lot of Strudel documentation in and kind of set up. So what we're going to do after we get Claude Code installed is we'll clone that repo and then hook up to the Strudel MCP from that repo. And that'll give the ability to have Claude Code review things like the documentation that'll reside in that repo. So once you pull it down, you can point Claude Code or any of the CLI coders, really, Gemini CLI or Quinn CLI or Codex. This should work for all of them. So the MCP, the Strudel MCP server that we're going to be using is an remote SSE server, and so the URL for that will be in the description. And just like the other videos, there's two parts to that server. There's the SSE part, the MCP server itself, and there's also the user interface, and they're both hosted at the same web page, just different endpoints. So at any rate, the first thing we're going to do is get set up with Claude Code. So just go, if you don't already have Claude Code installed, just go to the Claude Code website on Claude, and the Claude website, and copy this URL down here and come over to your command line. Just to make sure you're in a good directory for working, because we're going to download a GitHub repo in a minute into whatever directory you're in. And if you want to just make sure you're in your home directory, that will work fine. Just do CD, and that'll take you to your home directory. So then paste in that command over there. And we want the terminal version. I guess there's also other versions too. I don't know what on the web version. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So just run this, and if you have trouble running this, sometimes it helps to just do it as SU, and so I'll show you that in a minute. So if it does something like this and you don't see any errors, then it probably was successful. So if that doesn't work, you can also just type SU and then also that same thing again, and whoops, let's see, sudo, and then that should work as well too. I'm not going to do that, but once you enter your password, then it'll go ahead and install. So okay, so I'm just going to get out of there because mine worked already. And so if you want to free up your terminal, and get some more space, one command for that is just clear. And so if you do clear, it'll put you up to the top, and so you get a little more space. So the next thing to do is download this repo, GitHub repo. So I've created a GitHub repo at this URL, and what this is really is just a lot of documentation for Strudel. If you go in here, you'll see there's a docs folder. And basically, these are markdown versions of the web pages at strudel.cc. And so the reason for having these in a project like this is so that Claude Code can review them a little bit easier than trying to search for them on the web. So you can really put anything in here once you clone this repo. You don't have to use this documentation. You can really put whatever you want in there. And you can also have Claude Code search the web when it's working with you as well, too. So you can do both of those things. There's some other stuff in here. There's some little composition notes and some kind of sample compositions. And so I'm going to show videos about these eventually, not in this video, but lately I've been using Claude to write chord progressions and also melodies, and it's pretty good at that kind of thing because it understands a lot of music theory, and so you can really use Claude, or really probably any LLM, to learn a lot about music theory just by trying to make compositions in Strudel. So this is a really interesting thing. I didn't realize that these LLMs would be so smart about music theory, but they know quite a bit about it. That probably is not a surprise to some of you, but to me it was a real surprise. So anyway, I forgot what we were doing. Let's see. We're going to clone this repo. So the way to clone the repo, and I'll put the web page to the repo in the description below. And so you come over here to this little green button right here, and you go down here and you copy that URL. That's the URL for the GitHub repo. And you copy that, and then you come over to your command line and you just say git clone like that, and then you paste in that URL that you just copied. And so the command here is git clone and then the URL for the GitHub repo. And once you issue that, it downloads this repo and it puts it into a directory called Strudel LLM docs. It's just the end of the path here. And so the first thing you're going to do is change the directories into that folder that it creates. And so if you just type the first few letters of it, and then you should be able to hit tab, and it will find the path of the repo it just downloaded. And so you can cd into that like that. And once you're inside of there, you can issue the ls command, and the ls command will show you everything that's in that folder. So here's the stuff that was in the folder, and you can see it's the same stuff that was in the GitHub repo on the web. And so the stuff in here that's important for getting set up is one, the MCP, install the Strudel MCP script. There's a script right here that will install the MCP server so that Claude Code can find it. And then the rest of the stuff, there's a README that describes the setup, and there's a claude.md file so that Claude kind of knows what to do. And there's also a docs folder here. So if you go inside of the docs folder next, and then ls in there, you'll see the files that are in there. And these are the ones that we looked at a few minutes ago over here. These are just the documentation for the website. It's the same as at strudel.cc, basically. So at any rate, over here, if you want to follow along in the README for the repo, so far what we've done is we've cloned the repo, and we've also now cd'd into the change directory into the folder where we are. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run this script that will install the Strudel MCP server. But before we do that, let's cd back up to the regular directory, the main directory, and to do that you type cd ... and then you're back up here to the main directory. So I'm just going to do ls again so we can see what's in there. So the script that we have to run in order to install it is this one right here. And I'm going to show it to you, and then we'll run it in a minute. You don't have to show it, but in a minute I'll show you how to run that script. But first I'm going to type clear so we get some more space, and ls one more time. And so to see that file, what you can do is you can type cat, and that'll just display the file. Cat is a command that will display a text file if you give it the name of the text file. Notice also too, each time when I'm typing in here, I type something and then I start to type the name, and if you hit tab to do that, it will kind of pick up the name that you're trying to type in. So you should always practice just typing tab as you're typing things, because that will help you kind of get the full command line a little bit quicker. So let's see what's in this file. So what this basically does is it runs this command up here that installs the SSE server, the Strudel MCP SSE server for Claude Code to use. And this is the command line to do that. You could just type in or copy and paste this command right here, and that would be enough. So that's the other way. And the docs over here say that you can just type that in directly or copy and paste that in directly. I'm going to go ahead and run that script. The way to run that script, it's this green colored text file up here is the script. The way to run a script when you're at the command line that's in the directory that you're in is to type dot, which stands for the current directory, and then / and then the name of the file, and then hit tab. And so what this will do is execute that install Strudel MCP script, and it'll install our MCP server for us. So go ahead and run that like that. And remember, you have to have the dot there, and then / and then the name of that text file. And then it prints out as it's installing it. And if you have trouble running that particular script, just go and get the Claude MCP command. That'll also work as well. And you can copy this and paste it over here. In fact, I'll show you how that would work. You just copy this over here, and then you come over here and you paste it in, and you would run it like that. And it says it's already loaded in, and that's because we ran it from the script up there. So either way, once you have the Strudel MCP server installed, it's going to be called this name right here. So once you have installed that, then what you can do is go ahead and start up your Claude. So I'm going to type Claude and hit return. And this will bring up Claude. And it's found that MCP server in a file called .mcp.json. And so it's going to ask you if it's okay to use this MCP server. And we're just going to hit enter to say yes. And now at this point, if you haven't authenticated, you would have to authenticate. So let me see, maybe I can show that. Is there a logout? Yeah, let's log out. And so now I'm going to show you again running Claude. Brings this up, and you got to choose your text style, and then you got to log in. So if you haven't logged in before, this is what this will look like. And it's going to ask you if you're using a subscription or if you want to use the API. We're going to use the subscription. And that's going to take me over here. And I'm going to say authorize that. And it looks like it's been successful. And so I can close this window right here. And now I'm back over to here. And back in the terminal window over here, it just says press enter to continue. So, okay, press enter to continue. And so now we should be ready to start to work with our Strudel MCP server. So the next thing we have to do is navigate to the address that has the MCP server. And in particular, we have to navigate to the user interface. And so that's this URL right here. And so if you copy and paste this over into a browser window, it'll look something like this. So right now there's nothing in here, and so I'm going to have Claude load something in, but this looks at first like it's the Strudel, the main Strudel web page, but it isn't. It's a clone of that or a fork of that, and then I'm running this server somewhere else. Excuse me. And it has a session ID up here, and we'll see how to use the session ID in just a little bit. But the session ID is similar to the way it was used in my previous videos. You have to copy and paste the session ID over here to Claude Code so it knows exactly how to contact the window over here. So, okay, let's first check and make sure that the MCP, the Strudel MCP is installed. So I'm just going to say MCP and hit return. And it looks like it's connected fine. And so if this doesn't say the Strudel MCP is connected, then you would go and try to figure out why that didn't work earlier when we installed the MCP server. So let's take a look at the tools that this MCP server has. So just go in here. There's a play code, and so when you play code, when you call play code, you have to pass session ID, and you also have to pass the code that you're going to pass over to the REPL, to the Strudel REPL window. And so the other thing you can do is call stop play, and that just requires the session ID, and then it stops whatever is playing. And then down here, sometimes Claude will call the get MCP status to see if there's any windows connected. And so this is the way it checks to see if there's actually a window on this web page over here. And if there is, it'll come back and say it found it, and it'll ask you what the URL or what the session ID that you want to use. And then down here, get currently playing code. That'll just get whatever's in the window so that Claude can work with it further. So you have to usually remind Claude Code to get the code if you want to make sure it doesn't overwrite it. So a lot of times you'll ask it to get the code and save it in a file, a text file, in the folder that you're working in. Okay, so far so good. Everything looks good. We're all set to start. Let's go back over here. Usually the first thing I do is just tell Claude to review the directory with the documentation in it and get ready to code some compositions. So can you review the docs in the, and so let's tell it where the docs are. They're in the docs folder, to get ready to compose some Strudel compositions. Okay. And it goes off and it'll search through that directory and look at those files and get ready. It'll probably also read some of the other files, and there's one of the files that's too big, and so this one is huge, and so it usually has a little trouble with that one, but that's okay. The same information is contained in most of the other files. So it reads a few hundred lines of each file. I don't know if it's reading the whole file or not, but and it also now is looking at some compositions and some of the rest of the files that are here, the examples, those two examples. And it's also looking at a file called syncopations, which is a little set of rules that I sometimes give Claude when I'm trying to introduce syncopations into a composition. So now it's thinking, I'm going to ask it to also review the README and the Claude .md file if it forgets. It seems like it should do that on its own. Okay, so it's all ready. Let's see what it says. It says key Strudel concepts. So it's got the main functions. It knows the musical tools. It also knows this little thing that I've set up called the anchor framework, which I'll show you, but I'll probably cover that in a later video. And then also it sees that there's some syncopation rules. And it's, let's see, can you read the Claude.md and the README file? I don't know if it read those. So what I'm going to do is ask it to load in one of those sample compositions and ask it to play that, and then we'll see how you can start working with the code. Okay, so it seems like it's ready. It knows about play code, stop code. It's probably going to ask me for the session ID. So I'm going to grab it from over here and copy it, and I'll paste it over here. Here is the session ID. It knows what it is if you just paste it in there. It's kind of expecting it. Okay. Now maybe it'll call get status to see if it can find this window. Yeah, there it goes. It wants to call get status. And it does confirm it's connected. It seems to always capitalize the session ID, but it's case sensitive. So if it has trouble ever, make sure you tell it it's a case sensitive ID. But even though it capitalizes it here in the chat, it usually knows how to send it. So you just have to paste it over there once. So can you load one of the starter files? Okay. I'll load the E minor starter file for you. Good. That's fine. Okay. So it's going to play this code. I wish it didn't put all of this in. It lists the arguments for every tool it calls, and so the arguments are this really long string. There might be a way to keep it from doing that, but okay, so you can see what it's done. It started playing this little composition. This little composition has 4 instruments, and it's in E minor, and what it's doing is it's putting in some chords to the 4 instruments so that they kind of match. And for 2 of the instruments there's 4 notes, and for 2 of the instruments there's 12 notes, and so there's some rest there. And basically what I do at this point is I just ask Claude to start filling in say like a melody down here, and then maybe some counterpoint kind of melody down here, and starting to work with it this way. And so that's what I'll show in some of the next videos. But this is basically the setup. Let's ask it to stop playing. So can you stop? Can you stop it? And I'll just show one little bit. I'll have it fill in the rests in instrument 3. So can you fill in the rests in instrument 3 with a nice melody that matches the chords that are there now? Okay. So it's thinking for a minute. So remember, you before you ask it to change some code, if you need to save the code, just ask it. When you start working with Claude, you could say every time I ask you to change the code, make sure you save a version of it first, and that would kind of keep it from accidentally, replacing anything that you wanted to save, because it doesn't save things automatically, but just remind it to save the file. And there's a folder called composition, and you could save it into there if you want to. Okay, so far so good. This is great. It sounds great, and so that's it for this video. We'll stop here, but then next time I'll come back and kind of show a little more of this process and how I work with the chord progressions and the melodies, and to build up something from that. All right, have fun.